Hello, everyone. It's Natalie here for the live today. Welcome if you are attending live, and today we are discussing about the number one thing to avoid promoting self-doubt in our children and instead to promote self-confidence. So what we need to do to promote more self-confidence in our children. So hello, everyone who is here with me and joining me for this live today. Let me know if you can hear me well. Last week, I had an audio issue, so I just want to make sure that the audio is good and that you're hearing me properly, so it's not annoying. And in the meantime, I'll be introducing myself. My name is Natalie, and I'm a mom of 3 boys. And I'm also an emotion transformation coach, helping parents manage their triggers and emotions. And today we're talking about this very interesting topic that I've learned from my mentor, from Dr. Gabor Mate, about the needs that our children have and how when there's a conflict between these needs, it can promote more self-doubt instead of self-confidence in our kids. So if you're joining me today, say hello. And if you have any questions throughout the live, just put them in the threads. Otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and get started. And I know a lot of you watch these videos on replay. So if you're watching it on replay, you can also put your questions in the thread as well, and I will come back to them. So welcome. What I want to talk about is how to promote self-confidence in our kids. And in order to promote self-confidence, we need to understand the 2 fundamental needs of our children. And the 2 fundamental needs are the needs for attachment that I've talked extensively throughout all my previous videos. So I won't go into much detail. I will touch upon them on the surface level. But there's also this need for authenticity. So the attachment needs of a child is very vital and it's indispensable. It's a biological need and necessary for survival. And it's very instinctive. Every child knows that they have the need for attachment in order to survive. And by now, if you've watched my videos, you know that those attachment needs are needs to be heard, seen, loved, validated, accepted, understood, and then feeling safe to then explore, to learn, and to thrive. So those are the attachment needs, and they are vital to the child. And we know we can't survive without attachment. Now, the other fundamental need is the need for authenticity. And what does it mean to be authentic? It's to know, to understand, and to appreciate who we are, who we truly are. And that we can connect to our feelings and being free to express these feelings. So our children also have that need to be able to express who they are and to know that they are appreciated and that they are loved the way they are. You know, just like a baby coming into this world, we actually, as parents, will love the baby as they are. You know, when they're chubby, we say they're cute and we want to cuddle them. We give them a lot of attention. So that's that need for authenticity, to be appreciated, to be loved for who I am, and to be able to express myself and express my feelings freely. So what happens that doesn't allow for self-confidence to be established and to promote self-confidence with our children is when there is a conflict between the attachment needs and the authenticity needs. When our attachment needs are being threatened by that need to be authentic, then that creates the conflict. And during that conflict, a child most likely will choose their attachment needs over their authenticity needs, meaning the child will say, my need for love, for validation, to be safe, to be accepted is more important if my need to be myself is jeopardizing that. And that's how then the child decides to let go of the need to be authentic, to be themselves, because they are dependent on the adults to stay connected with them so they can have their attachment needs met. For instance, I'll give you an example. If as a parent yells at a child because the child is being loud, for instance, and we all know some of our children are really loud. That's who they are. That's how they express themselves. And if a parent can't accept that the child is loud, and the parent is getting angry whenever the child is being himself or herself, then this child quickly knows that it's not safe to be who I am. Because when I am who I am and expressing myself, I either get punished or I get yelled at or I feel the anger. Another example is if a parent expects a child to have all A's on their report cards, then this also sends the message that if I do not have all A's, then I'm not going to be accepted. I don't feel worthy of your love. So there's conditions that have to be met. And when I'm being myself, it's not safe to be myself, to be loud. It's not safe for me to not get all A's, for instance, in order to be loved, to be cared for, to be validated. So then when this happens, there's a disconnection between the parent and the child. And the child always feels that disconnection. And so when they feel that disconnection, there is some question mark going on in the child's brain. Because we as adults, our brain is fully developed. When our child, that little brain are still developing. So somehow when we want the best for them, yes, we want them to do well in school, and we want to have more of a controlled environment. We don't want to have too much noise going on around us. Those are the things that we want, but it's also sending the wrong signal. And most likely it's in the way that we're communicating it. So for instance, a lot of time we as parents, we unconsciously are giving the message, I don't accept you the way you are. That's how a child feels like when they're being yelled at, when they're just having fun, and maybe they don't want to get up and put their things away, and they're feeling our anger. Or also if they are just being themselves, being loud and rowdy, and they get yelled at, and they don't understand why did that get yelled at. And also, if the child is not feeling worthy of love unless this or this or this expectation is being met, like I have to have the grades, I have to be nice, I have to be quiet, I have to be a hard worker, and so on. These are the unconscious message we are actually giving them. So know that children can't live without the love of the parent. When they sense that the love is not there, and instead they're getting the opposite from the parent, they feel that disconnection, then they put meanings to that. They learn quickly, perhaps there's no love available to them. or perhaps they're not worthy of love. And those meanings, as adults, we know that's not true. But to them, because their brain hasn't fully developed, it sounds like that's the case, or it feels like that's the case. Who I am is not lovable. Who I am is not worthy of love. And so they quickly, because their little brain quickly wants to reestablish connection with the parent, our children quickly will do something, right? They'll tell them, okay, if I want love, I have to, for instance, work harder. I have to work harder to get the grades. I have to work harder to not mess up. I have to please others in order to get the love. I have to make sure that I do what they are asking me to do so I get my attachment needs met. So when the child is coming up with that, and that's what they're doing, they are wanting their attachment needs met, but they're also disconnecting from themselves because they want that connection with us so much that they're ready to disconnect with who they are. They don't want to be this loud child and getting in trouble for being loud all the time. So they become quiet. They don't want to be able to express their emotions because expressing their emotions then brings up criticism like you are too sensitive. I know that's what I got. I got that message really loud and clear that then I developed this coping mechanism that I shouldn't be sensitive. So I shouldn't express my emotions in front of others because it's not safe. So that's in the background. Unfortunately, that's what the child is registering. And I know as parents, that's not what we want to tell them. But unless we can understand them and see what's going on with them, and we continue the habit and the behavior that as parents we're doing, then unfortunately, that's the message they are getting. And so it's important to become aware of that. What kind of message am I sending my child when I get angry, for instance, when they're being loud? What kind of message I'm sending my child when they come home and their report card doesn't show all A's and I'm angry about it, or I start questioning them and I'm making it clear that the only way I'm going to be satisfied is if you get all A's. I'm not saying that's you, but that's what happens a lot of times. And the child quickly gets to say, okay, who I am is not enough. Yeah. So know that children always wants to have the connection with the parent, and they will always sacrifice the authentic self, their authentic self, in order to get that connection. Because they know they won't survive without the attachment needs for love, for comfort, for validation, acceptance. And that's all going to make them feel safe in their own environment. So I'm going to go quickly. So if you're here with me, please say hello, and any questions, put them in the thread. And so the things that we do that we may be unconscious about that creates more self-doubt. And I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but just to give you some ideas. For instance, with our babies, there's a school of thought that says that if we pick up our babies every time they're crying, we're going to spoil them. And I don't think that's true. I know for me, it doesn't feel true. When I had my babies, I couldn't bear when they were crying not to attend to them. And I don't think I'm the only one, but I can be wrong. And all I'm saying here is that babies, their way of communicating with us parents is by crying. They don't have the words, they don't have the language, therefore they cry. The moment they come into this world, a baby cries. A baby cries because they want to be close to their mom. They want to be fed. They want to be comforted. They want the warmth. They want to know that they're safe being close to us. So if we leave them to cry on their own, and even when they're older, then we're sending a message to them. And really quickly, the baby will question, am I worthy of the attention of my parents, my caregivers? And if the parents or the caregivers don't show up, quickly they develop this belief that I'm not worthy of their attention, of their love. And trust me, I've worked with many clients that have gone back to being pre-verbal, and that's what was happening. And that's the message they registered. So I just want you to know that, because for those of you who have small children and babies, that maybe connect with your own gut feelings. What are your gut feelings telling you right now? Should you go attend to them and go with your gut feelings rather than to follow what others are telling you? So another thing is, when those attachment needs are not being met, they're being neglected, then that creates a lot of self-doubt. Again, the child is thinking, okay, is there something wrong with me? Am I not worthy of love? What's going on? What is it that I need to do? Because right now my needs are not being met. So then there's that questioning of who they are as children. And we know that there's nothing wrong with our children. Most of the time, I would say 99% of the time, they're just being kids. But when they start to not have their needs met, then they go on this trying to fix the attachment needs by questioning who they are. And another thing is they may be getting the wrong message. As again, taking the example of a baby, we usually tell the baby, oh, look how cute you are. You're adorable. You're so precious. I just want to pick you up. I just want to spend some time with you. I just want to cuddle with you. And then as a baby grows up and becoming older, and the child starts to explore, and as they're exploring, they are engaging in certain behaviors because they don't know what's right and what's wrong, what's acceptable, what's not, and that's why they explore. But then when they're doing and engaging in behaviors that we don't like, then there's the labeling that starts to happen, and saying you're a bad boy, you're too much, you're too this, you're too that. And when we start to label a child, we are also disconnecting them from their authentic self, because that's what they're hearing from us. And over time, that's what they register. And they think that's who they are, but that's not who they are. And we are saying that to them, like, bad boy, but that's a languaging that we've learned. And we need to change that, because we know that our children are not bad. They're not too much of this or too much of that. And we know that who they are is lovable, is enough. And if we know that about ourselves, we know that about our children. So not sending the wrong message. Another thing is that also creates self-doubt for children is their inability to say no to us. And I think in one of my videos, I talk about counter will and willpower. A child from the age of 18 months will start to learn to develop their willpower. And how do they develop their willpower? Is by starting to say no to us. They want to know if they can say no to us. And that's why they say no to everything. And we label this as the terrible twos. But this is a development stage for them where they are starting to practice their willpower. And if we don't allow them to say no, then they quickly take this as a message as well. I can't say no. I can't say what I want. It's not safe to say what I want. It's not safe for me to say no. And if they can't say no, would their yes mean anything? So those are the things that somehow we're not aware of. And I wish I was aware of all of these things when my kids were little. And I've made the mistakes, but I think it's worth it if you have younger children to understand all of that, because when you know better, you can do better, right? So I'm not here to blame anybody. I'm not here to criticize anybody or anybody's parenting. I'm just sharing this information with you because I know for myself, I wish I knew about it, because then I would have done things differently. So then what is the secret sauce to promoting self-confidence in our children? So the first one, to promote that confidence, in the ideal world, we want to meet their attachment needs and also their authenticity needs, so that they know that they can be their authentic self and also have their attachment needs being met. And we don't live in a perfect world. We are humans. We make mistakes. But I'm going to give you an example of how we can balance both the attachment needs and the authenticity needs in our children. So know that our children need us to mirror to them their true essence. So our babies come into this world knowing, and we all come into this world knowing, that we're worthy of love, we're worthy to be seen, to be heard, to be accepted, to be validated, and to feel safe. We all come into this world knowing this. And it is our role as parents to continue to mirror to our children their true essence, that they are deserving of love, of attention, of care, of validation, of praise. And so we can encourage them, we can be there by their side. So for instance, and I'm sure you have a child or one of your children, or you know a child who is shy or afraid to do something. And it's important, like say a child is scared to go swimming, for instance. In that moment, it's important to see the child and recognize that they are scared. And that's why they are hesitant and they say, oh, I don't want to, right? And it is important to listen to them, to hear them when they're saying, no, I don't want to. And allow them to tell you a little bit more about why they don't want to do this thing right now. And the next step is validating their feelings. As a parent, again, mirroring to them, okay, I get it. I get it. You're scared. I get it. You're nervous. And then encourage them. And how do we encourage our children? Not just by saying to them or push them to go do that exact thing that they're scared of, or by comparing them to somebody and say, see who so-and-so is doing it. I know I've said that myself, but the most effective way is by encouraging, by being by their side and doing the activity with them. And that's how we encourage our children when they are scared, nervous, to do something that's new or that they are perceiving they're not capable of doing. So by doing it with them, or by being by their side, if they are older and they know that you're there, if something would happen, then that makes them feel safe. And then by praising them for the effort they've put in, praising their courage to do it, even if we were by their side. Afterwards, validating how they feel now after they've made the effort, after they've done something different today. Even if you were there, but even if you were by their side, and asking them, how does that feel? And that builds confidence in them. And they're in the little brain says, yeah, you know, mom was by my side, dad was by my side. I knew he was there, but then I was able to pick up the ball and shoot the ball. I was able to get back on my bike and I was able to ride. I was able to get in the water and I was no longer scared. I put my face underneath the water and I knew it was okay. That's how we actually promote self-confidence, by meeting the attachment needs so they feel safe and then allowing them to have these emotions that they are feeling when they are nervous or scared or afraid. So this is one example. And another thing, part of that secret sauce is know that a rule of our mind is the words we are saying to our children and the images we're creating is what becomes reality. So for each human, the words we say to ourselves, the images we create in our mind creates our own reality. But as a parents, the words we're saying to our children, they will register those words and they will absorb these words. So for instance, for children between 0 and 7, we know they are like sponge. That's the time where they are under hypnosis, where they download everything. They watch and download. So they're also hearing what we're saying and they're downloading those words. For instance, if we're saying to a child and we keep telling to a child, you're careless, every time they make a mistake, then over time from hearing this is the belief they create. And when they create that belief, oh, I'm careless, then later on, they may become more scared of making mistakes. And then they don't want to take any risk. They don't want to do anything new because they're scared, because that's what's been registered in their mind and they've taken on that belief that they are careless. So instead, what can we do? We can point out to the child what they need to be aware of in their environment to prevent the accident, if it was accident that was happening, knocking down a glass of water or any kind of mistakes. Like, what can we show them and make them aware of instead of labeling them again? Another thing is not to shame. And unfortunately, the way we've used language is harming our children because we are questioning again their sense of self-worth and worthiness when we use that kind of language. So for instance, when our child is engaging in a behavior that's not acceptable, yes, we need to tell them that. We need to make them aware of that. We need to educate them. That's our role. I totally agree. But the way we actually communicate to them is important. And often we've learned as parents to say, you're a bad girl, you're a bad boy when you do this or that. And just listen to this. You are a bad boy. You are a bad girl. It's questioning their sense of self-worth and who they are. And we know that our children are not bad. The behavior is bad. And we know that they can change the behavior. And that's what we want them to do, actually, is to change the behavior, but not questioning who they are. Because who they are is whole, it's perfect as they are. And maybe you've experienced that growing up when you were told you're bad. I know I've experienced it, and it doesn't feel good. And really, it makes us question ourselves. And a lot of us, even in adulthood, we're still questioning that if we're a bad person just because we want to speak up, because we want things a certain way, we feel inhibited. And that's because probably we've learned and we've heard this language that we are bad. Third thing is to allow room for mistakes and failure. We're all humans. We learn by making mistakes. That's how we learn. So if you are finding yourself expecting your child to do things right all the time, know that what we're doing in this moment is asking for perfection from that child, or our child should get it right away. And that really affects their self-esteem. And that may also develop anxiety later on when they feel the pressure to perform when it comes to exams, tests, or they have to do a performance, a music performance, theater, whatever it is that's involved, they then feel, oh my gosh, if I don't get it right, then I'm going to be a total failure. And that really cripples us if we set ourselves on this path. And it's the same for our children. So leaving room that they can make mistakes and that they can learn from those mistakes. And that's why we make mistakes, right? So look at a baby. Again, I'm going to take the example of a baby. When the baby learns how to walk, how many times does the baby fall? Do we ever say to a baby, you can't, you have to get it right the first time? No, we are actually more understanding, and we understand that our baby needs to fall down many times, and eventually they will all walk. And why does that have to change later on when our children are getting older? Why do we have that expectation then that they should get it right away? That's a question I had to ask myself that. And that really changed and shifted how now I approach even the way I homeschool my kids, not to have that expectation that if they make mistakes or if they don't get it right away or they don't do things in a certain way, that doesn't mean anything about them. Eventually everybody catch up and learn on their own terms. So the next thing is, don't force a child to do anything that they don't want to or they don't like to. So avoid forcing things on our children, because eventually they get resentful and then they don't like it. They may not like themselves, who they are. Again, we're disconnecting them when we're forcing them to do something that they don't like. Just take an example of yourself. If somebody told you, oh, you have to do this, and force you to do something that you actually don't like doing, how would you feel? And that creates conflict for a child, because again, the child comes in and say, I want to be able to do what I love. I want to be myself. I want to express myself. And now we're saying, no, you can't be like this. You need to do this. You need to do that. And that doesn't resonate with the child. And that really creates that conflict within themselves. And they feel like they can't be themselves when they don't have the ability, the choice to choose. So, and we don't allow their autonomy to also develop when they can't make choices. So I understand you may be asking, but there are circumstances where we can't just let them do whatever they want. And I agree with that. So within the boundaries, give them choices. And they may even help you to come up with the choices. And then they can choose what they want to do. You can say, you can do this or you can do that. And then they feel that they have agency and they have the autonomy to make their own decisions. And when we allow them to make those decisions, that's how they grow up feeling more confident within themselves to keep making decisions and bigger decisions as they get older. And the last thing is to stop blaming, comparing, complaining, criticizing, because we know all of that. I'm not going to linger on it. You know that when somebody blames you, compares you to somebody else, criticize you, complain to you, it never feels good. You don't feel good. And so it's the same with our children, and the message again that they're getting when we keep blaming them for their mistakes, or we compare them to a sibling, or we criticize them for who they are. The message, which is loud and clear that they're getting in their little mind, is that you're not good enough. And that really destroyed their self-esteem, their connection with us and with others, and their authentic self. We're actually really questioning who they are when we are saying, you're this or you're that, and blaming them for what has happened, or how can you not be like this? and so on. So that's the secret sauce on how to build more confidence. So avoiding certain things like blaming, comparing, criticizing. Don't force our children to do what they don't like. Give them choices instead. Allow for mistakes and failures even, because that's how we learn. And it's not the end of the world when we've made a mistake or we've failed. Instead, it builds resiliency in us. And using the words that are going to have a positive impact on our children, and not the words that are actually going to be stripping them away from who they are. And having, at the end of the day, that balance between meeting our children's needs and allowing them to be who they are. So hopefully this has been insightful for you. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the thread, or you can send me a message. I'll be happy to answer them for you. If you're recognizing that you have trouble yourself with self-confidence, and what I'm saying about being able to be authentic, and you have trouble with that, then I would suggest that if you are willing to actually address those things for yourself first, because we know that if we do not accept ourselves for who we are and we can't express who we are, it also inhibits us as parents to accept our children for who they are and allowing them to be who they are, because we don't even know how to do this for ourselves. It was most likely not mirrored to us, and we need to learn to do that for ourselves so we can then put these practices that I've shared with you in place and feel like it's easier for you to engage into those practices. So if you've tried and you found it difficult because there's something within yourself that is, it's kind of not connected, you don't feel like you can be your authentic self and be confident, then I would suggest that maybe there's something there for you to look at. And that's what I usually help parents with. So you can reach out to me. You can learn more about my emotion control method that addresses our own emotions, how we feel about ourselves, how we're viewing ourselves, and how that then translates into the way we parent with our children. So in order to allow our children to be their authentic self and being able to meet their attachment needs, we want to be able to also allow ourselves to meet our own needs for authenticity and for attachment as well. So it goes hand in hand. So if you have any questions or you're curious about the program, feel free to reach out to me. Otherwise, thank you for listening. Thank you for your time, and watch out for my next video, and take care of yourselves and of your children, and see how you can be your authentic self with your own children, allowing your children to be authentic as you're meeting their needs. Take care, everyone. See you soon.